Hi guys, today I am filming my novelizations and film tie-ins video. This is currently my shelf of novelizations, film tie-ins that I've read. I got them all organised after the last few that I'd read, but obviously there's still more in my read shelves somewhere. This was inspired by a video of one of my friends on Instagram. He's done a similar video and I will link his video down below. I'm not sure how many parts this is going to be in yet. This was originally supposed to be a very different video. I was going to originally be standing in front of the camera and talking about these, but if you think about it, this is how far I'm zoomed in. I'm standing at the other side of my room at the moment. I couldn't actually get myself and my tripod and my camera into this space beside my bookcases, get my bedside table moved out the way and still be comfortable with stuff at my back. I'm going to do it slightly differently to how I originally planned out, which means taking all these books off the shelf. And think about that. I will get this set up and we're going straight into the video. Next up you've got Elektra, and this was written by Yvonne Navarro. I'm sure I've got another of her books somewhere, or I've seen her. She has done a couple of novelizations that I can think of, but I can't think what the other one is now. It may be coming up later on and then it'll suddenly trigger my memory. There's the author's name. Spine's pretty bashed in. It was bought used. There's no photos in this compared to the novelization of Daredevil, but it's kind of around about the same size. Then you have The Exorcist. This is not a novelization. This was written before the film was made, but obviously the film was such a hit that it kind of overtook the author, I suppose, in a sense. But this is by William Peter Blatty, and I'm sure my dad has either read a sequel to this or there is another book along kind of similar lines, but I can't think of what it is at the moment. But this has the movie tie-in cover. Obviously it has a new foreword by the author as well. I mean, if you think about it, the copyright of this was 1971, so there's probably been a lot more editions out than this one. This book is set in 10 to 11 PT Plantain. I do like to watch this film. I find it quite terrifying how they managed to film such a thing, and then obviously there's a lot of the kind of so-called curses that happened during and after this film was made, but it's not a film I can watch often. Then I have Far and Away. Now this is written by Sonja Massie, and I stumbled across this. I was looking for a novelization of Far and Away. I didn't expect to find one, and I was quite shocked when this popped up in the Google recommendations, and I had to get it like straight away. Then I had to read it straight away. Far and Away is one of my favourite films, despite the dodgy accents. I have to say, Tom Cruise. You think Keanu Reeves and Dracula was bad? Oh dear. But it is a good film and it is an excellent novelisation. It is by far one of my favourite novelisations and it is really good. There is a kind of making of film book which I bought and read, and it wasn't what I was expecting, and it actually contained pretty much a lot of this novelisation, and because I'd read it like fairly recently, it was still quite fresh in my head. It just didn't work, so I ended up skimming a lot of the book, and it's supposed to be a making of, and there was like a handful of parts maybe that were actually strictly about the making of the film and not just a story, which was quite disappointing. So I wouldn't recommend that, but if you can pick this up, I would highly recommend it. It's an excellent film and an excellent book. There is the author's name there. You've got kind of images there, front, and that image, which I don't really think appears anywhere in the film. There's no photos or anything like that, but it's quite a sturdy novelisation, much like Elektra and Daredevil and Butterfly Effect. They're all quite lengthy novelisations. So next up I've got the Final Destination novelisation, which is by Natasha Rhodes, and she has done one of the other books in this series, which are technically not novelisations, but I'm keeping them all together for the sake of keeping them all together. It may change because where I had them they were all up because one of the authors is called, her surname's Collins, so I was keeping them all kind of together, and then I've put them all into my novelisations, but there may be some later that I may take out because they are taking up a lot of space. But again, quite a sturdy novelisation. Natasha Rhodes there. the iconic movie art with someone almost chopped off there. Didn't quite fit, and it isn't even either, is it, when you think about it. I do love these films, ridiculed for loving these films, but there's also a novelization of Final Destination 2 and Final Destination 3, but then it stops. So you've got Final Destination 2, which is written by two authors. You have Natasha Rhodes again, but you also have Nancy A. Collins. I'm not sure why it was written by two different authors, but I'm sure a lot of these are ghostwritten. So as you can see from there, Nancy A. Collins and Natasha Rhodes. Standard movie image there. And then you have Final Destination 3 with the upside down roller coaster, people screaming. This is by a different author again. This is by Christa Faust. Once more for the three of them. You have three different authors with one of them doing first book and then part of the second as well. So why they didn't continue, I'm not sure. I would love to know how authors get these. As I've said, I've never been able to find novelizations of the rest of the films, but there are tie-ins. I'm not doing these ones in any particular order, mainly because I don't know which order they kind of go in. They are standalone, but a lot of them kind of tie in together, so you can read them as standalone or you can read them as a series. But this is Destination Zero, so you've got the kind of aspect of Final Destination, but with none of the same characters. I'm still keeping them in the film tie-in and novelization shelf because they are technically tie-ins, because they've been inspired by the film, and there are some good stories in here. I did enjoy some of the stories, and I think some of them would have worked quite well as films. This is by David McIntee, I want to say. Kinda doesn't tell you much about what's going to happen in the book, and it's got Final Destination New Line Cinema as well, so it has that. It says based on characters from the motion picture. You do get slight hints occasionally from the films, so it will reference the films occasionally. I have reviewed these books on Amazon and Goodreads. If you were interested, you could probably go and see the reviews there. I wasn't that keen on this one, really. That seems to... I just find this whole Jack the Ripper completely detracted from the actual story, so it wasn't my favourite. There's still one of these that I have to get, and it seems to be very much out of print because I can't find it anywhere. It is listed on Amazon, but it's listed for ridiculous prices. Some of these very much so tend to fluctuate in price. I managed to get a hold of them for semi-reasonable prices. I don't think any of them were more than say £10-12, but even then I kind of was like, oh, I'm spending this much on a single book. I was kind of a bit iffy about that, particularly when you've got stuff like this that is an ex-library book. This is by Stephen A. Roman. This is Dead Man's Hands. This was all set in Vegas. As I say, if you enjoyed the films, I would definitely recommend seeing if you can pick up some of these, because they are quite good. They are quite lengthy as well. There is some plot points that don't work, like the Jack the Ripper one from the previous book there. There are some things that don't work, but for the majority of the time I did find them quite enjoyable. And this is End of the Line by Rebecca Levene. There's the author's name there. Again, doesn't give you too much of a inkling as to what's going to happen. I've got Dead Reckoning. Now this is actually an interesting one. This is by Natasha Rhodes, who you'll remember wrote the first novelisation and some of the second novelisation, depending on how you want to look at it, since she wrote it with another author. So this is quite interesting because obviously she's written, say, 2 of the novelisations, so she's already quite immersed in that world of Final Destination. This one gives you a kind of little inkling of not what's going to happen, but what the whole story is based around. Again, had to buy this used. It's quite well battered. And then last but not least, because I can't get this other one, is Looks Could Kill. Guess what? By Nancy A. Collins, who wrote the second one with Natasha Rhodes. This was quite a creepy one, actually. Again, cover doesn't go into great detail, and initially until I started reading this, the cover confused me. I didn't really know what was going to happen. This kind of spins off and goes in a different direction as well to the actual series, so it is quite interesting that way. I think the author, Nancy Collins, did a really good job of this one actually, because of this twist, and it did work. But as I say, these are quite expensive, so look out for them, see if you can get them quite cheap, because they are worth reading if you enjoy the films. So then we have Frozen, which is another one of my Disney novelizations. This was written by 2 authors actually, which was quite strange considering how short a book it is. Why would you have 2 authors writing such a short book? There's nothing on the spine as to who are the authors. Everyone knows the story of this. If you have kids or you're like me and is total dark. But again, you've got your title page. Nothing on it. I suppose you've got a second title page, and that's where you can see the author's names. So it's by Sara Nathan and Sela Roman. I might not be saying that correctly, but you've got colour photos inside. Very nice. You don't have any from when they're younger, but you do have it from kind of start of the coronation, the photos there. But again, I find it quite strange that the author's names just aren't on the front of these. What's the most unlikely novelization you can think of? And it's right here. The full Monty novelization. When I originally saw this, I was like, what the hell? What the hell is this? Let's do a novelization about men stripping. This is a weird novelization because for me, the film's better. It didn't capture the essence of the film, which I don't know what I was wanting really from this book, but it's by Wendy Holden. I think it is more better for delving into the characters than anything else, and their backgrounds, which do kind of get brushed over a little bit in the film, but you have the colour photos there. It's not one of my favourites, put it that way. Then we have The Hand That Rocks the Cradle. This is by Tine as well, so he is one of those names that's probably going to keep popping up in this novelisation genre. This is actually one of my mum's favourite films. I do enjoy it myself as well. I probably appreciate it more now as an adult. This sticks very closely to the film as well, so you don't have much in the way of additions there, but you do have kind of more insight, I suppose. But again, it's black and white photos. They're not glossy in any which way. And there's Ernie Hudson. He does such a brilliant role in this film. It says 8 pages of sensational movie photos. I thought it said 8 colour pages. I was about to say, what's going on here? But yeah, another excellent novelisation. If you love the film, I would pick this up. But I think the movie's that little bit better. Another weird one. I don't actually have the first Home Alone novelisation. And I think I picked this up in a charity shop like eons ago. This may have been one of my first novelisations. Don't remember reading it. I may have to go back and reread it at some point because I'm not confident unless it's been many, many years. I think that's how long I've possibly had this book. When I was looking to put all my novelisations into like 1 to 2 shelves, I came across this and I was like, what the hell? Why do I have this book? This is written by A.L. Singer, a name that I recognise, I'm not sure why, but as you can see the cover is quite bashed, and I don't know if someone's been digging their pen in at some point or digging in pens or what the hell they've been doing, but these credits are tentative and subject to change. I've never seen that before. $2.99. Look at the price of this book. $2.99. That's how old it is. And yes, you have the colour photos inside. I haven't seen the Home Alone films in ages. And I've probably seen the first Home Alone film more than I've seen this one. Oh my god, there's Tim Curry. I forgot he was in that. Wasn't it Donald Trump that's in this one? I feel like that rings a bell. There's the family. I'm not sure, like I would probably need to get the first one as well, but it's not high on my priority at the moment to get that. Then we have I Know What You Did Last Summer by Lois Duncan, who is a young adult author. So I didn't know this. I've seen this film loads of times. I didn't know there was a book that this was based on. For some reason, I don't know if I missed it on the credits or if I used to fast forward the credits or what happened, but I never actually saw it. And then for some reason I typed it in to Amazon or something like that and this popped up. For the film, there's also a book sequel, and I got that, and it's actually the screenplay, and I struggle with reading screenplays. I find it really hard because there's no really description there, which is why I prefer reading novelizations, because they add in the description from the film or what they think is going to happen, and I don't feel like you get that from screenplays. And I think I left that in my work screen room, like in our little kind of break area. It's got a whole bunch of books in there, and a lot of them I tend to put in. I don't have to take them back home again if I can't get into them. So this is Lois Duncan. She has done other kind of young adult books. I don't have either of those two, but there is one other I think I've got, possibly, and there's still a couple of others on my list. But it is different to the film, I find, which is why I prefer the film, because I know the film so well now. Stuff's changed, and I didn't really like that. I'm not sure Lois Duncan would have liked it either, considering what they did to her book. They just really took aspects from it and then changed the rest of it, much like Beaches. I have Inner Space, a novelisation that I came across after watching the Steelbook recently, and this is so good. It doesn't really, again with the comedy, it doesn't really come across as very comedic. It is a great novelisation, but it's a better film, especially because I read a lot of the lines in Frank's voice, even though he's not Frank in the film. It's a good novelisation. It's quite a quick read. It's by Nathan Elliott, so it won't take you long to read at all. It is quite skinny. You can see there's no photos, unfortunately. Jack. I think the main thing for me with this book was it covered like the kind of beginning. I find the film beginning with the experiment and everything, I find it hard to follow. I don't really know what's going on apart from the shrinking him. But I think it goes into $1.95. Oh my god, $1.95. How book prices have changed, eh? I find that kind of gets a little bit more clearer in my head from having read this, but it does miss out on one of the best scenes of the film, and I'm not sure if this was added in at the time of filming, because it's not obviously in the original screenplay, so it's not in the novelisation, and I loved this part of the film. I thought it was really sweet, and it's just kind of not even mentioned in the book. So I have the novelisation of Johnny Mnemonic. I was originally thinking that another book on my list was the film tie-in of this, but I've just looked at the back and it's not. But this is by Terry Bissum, something along those lines, based on the story and screenplay by William Gibson. I don't like this, how they've taken the text from the film poster onto the back cover, because it kind of makes it difficult to read the blurb a little bit. I think that could have been better planned out there. Neuromancer. That's coming up, so we'll see that shortly. There's no photos in this. Have the novelisation of Just Like Heaven by Mark Levy. Another novelisation that I've had for quite some time now, and I haven't read it in years. It's, from what I remember, it sticks pretty much to the film. It's an interesting story in the film. I think it works quite well as a novelisation actually, because it's one of those books that you can just pick up and read even though you haven't seen the film. It doesn't have any colour photos, as you can see. It's just quite filthy actually, but I got it used. I have King Arthur. This was bought as a present and didn't like the film, didn't like the novelisation. I have kept it because there is an inscription inside it, and I just wanted to keep it because it has an inscription inside it. It's by Frank Thompson. I think I've seen the film once. I've never gone back to rewatch it because I really didn't enjoy it, and I've just kept this simply because of the inscription, and it's a novelisation as well. I'm really not sure, like, this film just didn't really work for me, and it was kind of let down for the book. Also, the binding in this book, like, I didn't really split the spine at reading, but as you can see, the binding is not the best on this book at all, and it has just split quite easily. There was just a crease down there, and it's just gone straight to that crease and just come straight apart. So I don't think the glue is too great on this book, on the book binding anyway.